Talia Rivers stood in front of the crooked mirror pinned to her bedroom wall, staring at the reflection she wished she could change. The fabric clinging softly to her frame was a faded blue cotton dress, hand-stitched decades ago by her grandmother. The flowers along the seams were delicate but worn, their threads loosening the way memories loosen when time steals them away. She tugged gently at the sleeves, smoothing the wrinkles she had ironed twice already. She had tried everything she could to make the dress look newer, pressed it, polished her shoes, braided her hair with precision, but nothing could hide the truth. The dress belonged to an era far behind her, and she knew other kids would see it the moment she walked through the ballroom doors. Her heart thudded at the thought of it. The Atlanta Spring Youth Gala. A place where children of business owners, board members, and civic leaders gathered in silk gowns and sharp suits. A place where the wealthy mingled effortlessly, and where students like her, brilliant on paper but financially struggling, were supposed to smile and pretend they fit in. A soft knock brushed against her door. "Talia? You ready, baby?" her mother called from the living room. "Almost," she replied, though her voice was barely a whisper. She touched the dress again, fingertips brushing over every stitch. Her grandmother, Evelyn Rivers, had sewn the flowers one by one during long evenings in Minnesota, saving money by making clothes instead of buying them. The dress was beautiful in its own quiet way, but beside the shimmering gown she would soon face, it felt like a reminder of everything she lacked. She wished she had something new, something that wouldn't single her out. Something that didn't carry the weight of family history stitched into every fiber. But the budget had been brutally clear. 1 month of rent, utilities, groceries, bus fare. There was simply no place for a new dress. Talia inhaled slowly, filling her lungs with courage as though it were something she could gather like air. She stepped out of the room. Danielle Rivers stood waiting near the front door, wearing her simple work blouse and jeans. Her dark curls framed her face, and though fatigue clung to her expression, her eyes lit up the moment she saw her daughter. "Oh, baby," Danielle breathed. "You look beautiful." Talia lowered her gaze. "I look like I'm wearing a museum piece." "You're wearing a legacy," Danielle said, stepping forward to adjust a loose thread. "Your grandmother made this by hand. She poured love into every flower." "I know," Talia said quietly. "I just wish people didn't judge so fast." Danielle exhaled slowly. "They might. But your worth doesn't shrink because someone else can't see it." Talia wished she believed that. They walked out into the night air. The streets were quiet, the city lights painting faint glows across the sidewalk. Danielle's old sedan waited by the curb, aging but reliable. As they drove toward downtown Atlanta, Talia pressed her forehead to the window, watching skyscrapers rise in the distance like silver giants. She could already imagine the ballroom, chandeliers glowing like captured stars, children gliding in dresses that cost more than their rent. The car hummed over the freeway. "You know why you got invited, right?" Danielle said. "Because of my grades." "Because of your talent," Danielle corrected. "Because people who matter see potential in you." Talia wanted to smile, but fear tangled inside her chest. "What if I don't belong there?" "You belong anywhere you walk with your head up." They reached the Marriott marquee, towering above them with its glass curves and bright entrance lights. Cars lined the front drop-off area, sleek sedans, luxury SUVs, and limousines with tinted windows. Talia's eyes bounced between the vehicles and her own shoes, which she had polished until her fingers hurt. Danielle parked a block away to avoid valet fees. As they stepped onto the sidewalk, Talia held her breath. The hotel doors opened automatically, releasing a wave of cold air scented with perfume, polished floors, and expensive evenings. Inside, everything gleamed: marble pillars, glass elevators, chandeliers that looked like waterfalls frozen in midair. They rode the elevator to the ballroom level. Talia felt smaller with every floor they passed. When the doors opened, soft music drifted toward them. Her stomach twisted. She saw glimpses of swirling gowns, gold decorations, and clusters of well-dressed families chatting comfortably. Danielle squeezed her hand. "Ready?" "No. Yes. Maybe. Not really." But she nodded anyway. They stepped into the ballroom. Instantly, eyes turned. Not all of them, just enough. Just enough for Talia to feel the sting of comparison sharp and immediate. Sequins glimmered. Velvet shimmered. Silk flowed like water. Her blue cotton dress stood out, gentle, aged, humble, completely unlike anything around her. Whispers floated. Not loud but not soft enough to miss. Who's she? Is that handmade? It looks so old-fashioned. Talia's heartbeat pushed against her ribs, desperate to escape. Danielle noticed the whispers too. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she stayed steady beside her daughter. Talia, a cheerful voice called. It was Principal Henderson, waving them over with enthusiasm. Our star student. I'm so glad you made it. Talia forced a smile. She appreciated him. He always supported her, but being placed in the spotlight made the room's stairs burn brighter. He spoke proudly about her achievements, unaware of how exposed she felt. Talia worried someone might be recording. She pictured a video of her circulating online, the girl in the old dress. The thought made her breath hitch. Principal Henderson excused himself to greet others. Talia and Danielle found a place near the wall, away from the clusters of families. Talia's eyes roamed the room. She wondered how long she would have to endure this. She wondered if anyone else saw her the way she saw herself tonight, small, mismatched, out of place. Then, across the ballroom, she noticed a man standing alone near the refreshment table. Tall, neat, composed. Silver touched his hair, and his expression was calm, observant, almost unreadable. He wasn't dressed like the other wealthy attendees who flaunted their status. His style was understated, almost humble. Yet something about him radiated quiet authority. And he was watching. Not at the crowd. Not at the stage. At her. Talia blinked, unsure why a grown man, a stranger, seemed fixated on the girl in the old dress. Before she could look away, the music shifted, signaling the start of the evening's first dance. Gowns rustled, pairs moved toward the center, and Talia's dread climbed her spine like cold fingers. She wished she could disappear. But the man across the room took one step toward her. Then another. Her breath locked in place. Who was he? Why was he coming toward her? And what did he see that others didn't? The night was only beginning, and nothing would remain the same. The lobby outside the ballroom was quieter, far quieter than the storm brewing in Talia's chest. She stepped out for a moment, needing air, needing space, needing to gather the pieces of herself before they scattered completely. Danielle followed close behind, concern etched across her tired features. "Baby, talk to me," she said softly. "What's going on in that mind of yours?" Talia leaned against the cool marble wall and stared at the patterned carpet beneath her shoes. "They're all looking at me, like I'm some kind of mistake. Like I don't belong in that room." Danielle exhaled slowly, pressing her lips together the way she always did when she wished she had more to offer. "People look because they judge by what they see first. But that's not on you." "It feels like it is," Talia whispered. "Every outfit in there belongs to someone on a higher level. Mine looks like a family keepsake." "Because it is," Danielle said. "Your grandmother made it when she didn't have much, but she still created something beautiful. She stitched it with pride." "I know," Talia murmured. "But people today don't see pride in things like this. They see poverty." The word felt heavy on her tongue. Danielle stepped closer. "You are not defined by your circumstances." "But they don't know that," Talia said, her voice cracking faintly. "All they see is what I'm wearing." She wrapped her arms around herself as though trying to keep the world out. Danielle gently lifted Talia's chin. "Look at me," she said. "You shine brighter than anything in that ballroom. That dress is only fabric. You are the star they invited." Talia blinked, trying to swallow the emotion building in her throat. "What if I embarrass you? Or myself?" "You could never embarrass me," Danielle said. "And anyone who thinks less of you hasn't looked deep enough." There was a pause, brief yet filled with years of unspoken resilience. Danielle continued, her voice softer now, weighted with memory. "Your grandmother wore this dress to her school's recognition event when she was young. She didn't have much, but she walked in with her head high. She won an award that night." "What kind?" Talia asked, surprised. "An honor for helping her classmates," for showing kindness in a school where not everyone was kind to her. Danielle smiled faintly. She taught me something important, that your value doesn't decrease because someone else refuses to see it. Talia felt a fragile warmth bloom in her chest. I wish she were here. She is, Danielle said. Every stitch she made is touching your skin right now. That's love, not shame. Talia brushed her fingertips across the dress once more. The threadwork didn't seem quite as dull as before. It felt meaningful, like a story she wore instead of a flaw she carried. But then she remembered the whispers, the looks, the giggles, the way Savannah and Jenna had stared at her with thinly veiled amusement. I just wanted to fit in, she murmured. Danielle gave a gentle smile. Fitting in is overrated. Standing out because you're unique? That's rare. Maybe that was true. Maybe. But Talia wasn't ready to believe it yet. A small group of families passed them on their way into the ballroom. One of the mothers gave the dress a curious glance, not unkind but puzzled. Talia's stomach twisted again. Danielle placed a hand on her shoulder. Remember why you're here, she said. The invitation was for your mind, not your clothing. That's the problem, Talia muttered. The invitation was for my mind. But the room is judging my body, and what covers it. Danielle let out a long breath. I know this world can be harsh, especially for girls who don't come from money. But one day they'll see beyond what you wear. Tonight isn't the end of your story. Talia nodded slowly, even though fear still clung to her. Come on, Danielle said. Let's get back inside. You don't want to miss anything. Talia hesitated. The ballroom doors loomed ahead, glowing with warm light. Inside, violins swelled through the speakers, laughter floated above polished floors, and gowns shimmered beneath chandeliers. Her chest tightened. I don't know if I can go back in, she admitted. Yes, you can, Danielle replied. And I'll be right beside you. That truth steadied her slightly. Her mother had always been the one constant in a world full of shifting ground. They stepped back into the ballroom. Immediately the atmosphere wrapped around them. Music, lights, whispers, the mingling of privilege and performance. Talia's eyes instinctively scanned the room for the two girls who had mocked her earlier. She spotted them near the refreshment table, laughing with classmates in sequin dresses and polished shoes. The sight made Talia's shoulders tighten, but she forced her steps to remain steady. Principal Henderson waved from across the room, eager to introduce more guests to his high-achieving student. But before Talia could respond, her eyes drifted back to the far corner. The man from earlier, the one watching her, was still there. But now he wasn't alone. A few attendees were speaking with him, shaking his hand. Yet his attention kept drifting back to her, as if he were observing something others had missed. Talia frowned slightly. Mom, do you know who that man is? Danielle followed her gaze. I don't recognize him. Maybe one of the sponsors. He keeps looking at me, Talia whispered. Maybe he's impressed by your courage, Danielle offered. Or confused about why I'm here, Talia muttered. Danielle gave her a light nudge. Stop assuming the worst. But Talia's nerves prickled. She didn't feel judged by him, not exactly. His gaze felt intentional, curious, almost familiar, though she had never seen him before. As the music softened, an announcer stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he said into the microphone, please prepare for the opening dance of the evening. Students, join your families on the floor. Talia's pulse sped up. Families began forming pairs and stepping into the glowing space at the center. Gowns brushed against the floor. Shoes clicked in graceful patterns. Every movement felt rehearsed, polished, important. Talia's throat tightened. Mom, I don't dance well. You'll be fine, Danielle said, squeezing her hand. No, Talia whispered, panic rising again. Everyone will stare. They're already staring, Danielle said gently. So give them something to stare at. Before Talia could respond, someone approached. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. She turned. It was the same man she had noticed before. He stood just a few feet away now, eyes warm, expression kind, posture respectful, yet full of purpose. Danielle straightened, surprised by his presence. Talia felt her breath hitch, thoughts scattering like loose petals. Why was he walking toward her? And what did he want? He stopped right in front of them and spoke Talia's name. The next morning, the quiet rhythm of Willow Creek High felt different for Tiana. It wasn't louder or more chaotic than usual. Students were still laughing near lockers, comparing weekend stories, slamming textbooks shut, but something inside her was different. She walked the hallway with guarded steps, expecting glances, whispers, maybe even jokes about her faded dress from the day before. Instead, the stares she got were curious, almost confused, because she wasn't wearing the old floral dress today. She'd chosen her only pair of dark jeans and a simple sky blue top. The outfit wasn't new, but it felt safe, neutral, forgettable. She wanted to slip through the halls without being reminded of yesterday's humiliation. And for a moment she thought she succeeded. Until she reached her locker. There stood Sierra Benson, impeccably dressed as always, flipping her sleek hair and wearing a smile that never meant anything good. "Well, well," Sierra said, tapping her nails on Tiana's locker. "Didn't expect to see you back so soon. Thought you'd still be crying into that antique." Tiana stiffened. She opened her locker slowly, pretending not to hear. Ignoring Sierra was like ignoring a mosquito. You could try, but it always found a way to buzz in your ear. Sierra leaned closer. "Relax. I'm just saying, maybe today will be better. At least your clothes aren't from a museum this time." A couple of Sierra's friends snickered behind her. Tiana swallowed hard. "Can you move? I need to get my books." Sierra stepped aside with exaggerated grace. "Of course. Wouldn't want to keep you from algebra greatness." Tiana grabbed her things and shut her locker quickly, forcing herself not to look back. The urge to defend herself tugged at her chest, but she'd learned long ago that reacting only fueled Sierra more. Silence was safer. As she walked toward first period, she caught herself replaying the moment over and over. The dress, the laughter, the heat in her cheeks, the cruel amusement in Sierra's eyes. She tried to shake it off, but the memory clung stubbornly. She wasn't sure why yesterday impacted her so deeply. After all, she'd been mocked before. For her hand-me-down clothes. For living in Cedar Pines apartments, an aging low-income complex on the edge of town. For never having the latest phone or brand-name shoes. Sierra knew exactly where to poke to make the bruise darker. But this time felt different. Maybe because the dance was coming up. Maybe because she secretly wished, more than she admitted even to herself, that she could go. That she could fit in for once. That she wouldn't stand out for all the wrong reasons. In class, she took her usual seat by the window. Ms. Jennings announced a group project, which caused the room to erupt into groans. Everyone started pairing up with their friends. As always, nobody looked her way. Tiana had grown used to being invisible. But then something unexpected happened. "Hey," a voice called softly. She looked up. A boy she hardly ever spoke to, Devin Carter, was standing beside her desk. Medium height, curly black hair, warm brown skin, and a quiet expression that seemed perpetually thoughtful. He wasn't popular like the star athletes, but everyone liked him. He was kind, smart, and always seemed to help people without making a big deal of it. "You want to be partners?" Devin asked, holding his notebook loosely in one hand. Tiana blinked. "Me?" He smiled slightly. "Yeah. Unless you already picked someone?" She shook her head quickly. "No, I didn't." "Cool." He pulled up a chair and sat beside her. And just like that, the room felt colder. Because Sierra, sitting 3 rows away, turned her head sharply. Her eyes followed Devin, then slid toward Tiana with thinly disguised irritation. Tiana's stomach tightened. "What do you think the project should focus on?" Devin asked. She cleared her throat. "Maybe renewable energy? We could do a model." "That's a good idea." Devin nodded. "I can bring materials. My uncle's an engineer. He gives me leftover supplies sometimes." "Oh, thanks." As they talked through ideas, Tiana found herself relaxing. Devin never treated her like she was strange or out of place. His tone was level, normal, comfortable. She wasn't used to that feeling. When class ended, Devin said, "I'll text you later so we can start planning." Tiana froze. I, I don't have a phone. Oh. He paused, then shrugged easily. No problem. I can come by the library after school. You'll be there, right? She nodded. Yeah. I help with shelving sometimes. Perfect, he said, waving before walking off. Tiana gathered her books and made her way out, but Sierra intercepted her once more, this time alone with a much sharper look on her face. Why is Devin talking to you? Sierra asked bluntly. Tiana hesitated. We're partners for the project. That's all? Tiana frowned. Why would it be anything else? Sierra stared at her a moment, then smirked. Just making sure you don't get confused. Guys like him don't hang out with girls like you. It'll just end badly if you start thinking otherwise. With that, she walked off. Tiana's chest tightened again. She fought back the sting of tears. Why did Sierra care who Devin partnered with? Why did she need to say it like that? At lunch, Tiana sat at her usual corner table in the back of the cafeteria, where she could see everyone but nobody seemed to notice her. She unpacked her food, turkey sandwich, 2 apple slices, and a water bottle. Her mom always tried to make sure she had something even when things were tight. As she ate, the noise of the cafeteria faded into a distant hum. Her thoughts spiraled again. Yesterday's dress, Sierra's comments, Devin's unexpected kindness, the dance she knew she'd never attend. She didn't notice Principal Howard walking toward her table until his shadow darkened her tray. Tiana, he said gently, could you come to my office for a moment? She stiffened, her heart pounding. Did I do something wrong? No, not at all, he assured her. I just need to discuss something with you. Students glanced over as she followed him out of the cafeteria. Embarrassment prickled at her skin. She hated drawing attention. Once in his office, Principal Howard shut the door and sat across from her. I heard about what happened yesterday, he said quietly. I know the dress meant a lot to you. Tiana's breath caught. I'm fine, she whispered. I'm not sure that's true, he said kindly. Your teachers mentioned you seemed shaken. She looked down at her hands, unsure what to say. Principal Howard leaned back slightly. The school board received an invitation from the Willow Creek Community Fund. They're sponsoring a student to attend the Sapphire Ball downtown next month. It's a formal charity event, very high profile. Donors, executives, local politicians, even some well-known business leaders. Tiana blinked slowly. She had no idea where this was going. We want you to represent the school, he continued. You're hardworking, respectful, and your teachers speak highly of you. We think you deserve this opportunity. Her breath stalled. A charity ball? A fancy event? Sir, she whispered, I don't have anything to wear to something like that. Principal Howard smiled knowingly. We're aware. And that's taken care of. Tiana's heart hammered as the truth settled in. Something big, something life-changing, was beginning whether she felt ready or not. And she had no idea that this invitation was about to pull her into a world she never imagined, and into the path of someone who would change everything. Someone who would make Sierra's taunts look small. Someone whose presence would reveal the first of many hidden truths. The rest of the school day passed in a blur, as if Tiana was drifting through someone else's life. Every time she tried to focus in class, Principal Howard's words replayed in her mind like a whispered echo she couldn't mute. You'll represent the school. It's taken care of. The Sapphire Ball. It sounded unreal, like a scene from one of those polished documentaries shown during assemblies, the kind where other kids were chosen for special programs or awards. Not someone like her. Not the girl with thrift store clothes and a lunch made of whatever her mom could put together the night before. Still, she couldn't shake the uneasy flutter in her stomach. Opportunities like this never came without strings. Or consequences. After school, she headed straight to the library, her usual safe haven. The scent of old paper and quiet calm always helped her think. She pushed open the glass door and saw Mrs. Delaney, the librarian, shelving a stack of books. Tiana. You're here early today, Mrs. Delaney said, giving her a warm smile. I needed some space, Tiana replied softly. Mrs. Delaney nodded with the kind of understanding that made Tiana feel seen without needing to explain. You can use the study room if you'd like. Tiana thanked her and settled into the small room at the back, the one with a single round table and a corkboard covered in community flyers. She pulled out her notebook not because she needed to study, but because putting pen to paper sometimes helped her sort through the tangle of thoughts in her head. Before she could write a single word, the door opened. Devin stepped inside, carrying a small box of craft materials. "Told you I'd come by." Her shoulders relaxed a little. "Thanks. I didn't think you'd remember." He placed the box on the table. "I don't say things I don't mean." For some reason, that simple sentence eased a tightness she hadn't realized she'd been carrying all day. "So," Devin said, sitting down across from her, "before we start, are you okay? You seemed distracted in class." Tiana hesitated. She wasn't used to people noticing the shifts in her mood. Most of the time, she blended into the background like fading wallpaper. "I'm fine," she said, then paused. "Well, something happened today. In the principal's office." Devin looked up, eyebrows raised. "Are you in trouble?" "No. He invited me to something. Some charity event called the Sapphire Ball." His eyes widened slightly. "Seriously? That's huge. How'd you get picked?" She shrugged. "He said they wanted someone who represents the school well." "That makes sense," Devin said without hesitation. "You're one of the hardest working students here." The compliment caught her off guard. Compliments weren't part of her daily life. They weren't even part of her monthly life. "I don't know," she murmured. "It feels weird. I've never gone to anything like that. I don't belong in places like that." "Why not?" Devin asked. She looked away. "Because I'd stick out." Devin leaned forward. "Maybe you don't realize this, but people notice effort, and kindness, and humility. Money doesn't make someone belong somewhere, character does." His words struck something deep within her, like a match lighting in a dark room. Before she could respond, Mrs. Delaney poked her head into the room. "Tiana? Someone is here asking for you." Her heart skipped. "Who?" Mrs. Delaney's expression was puzzled. "I'm not sure. A woman. Very well dressed. She said it's important." Tiana froze. Devin glanced at her. "You expecting someone?" "No," she whispered. She followed Mrs. Delaney back to the front desk, her pulse quickening with every step. Standing near the entrance was a woman in a tailored gray coat, elegant gloves, and polished heels. Someone who looked like she walked out of a magazine. She glanced around the library with a quiet confidence before her eyes landed on Tiana. "Hello," the woman said with a calm, refined tone. "You must be Tiana Reed." Tiana nodded slowly. "Yes. My name is Vivian Clark," she said. "I've been sent by the Willow Creek Community Fund. I'm here to assist you with preparations for the Sapphire Ball." Tiana blinked. You're here for me? Right now?" "Yes," Vivian said. "We have a schedule to follow. The ball is only 3 weeks away and there's much to do. Fittings, measurements, transport arrangements. I thought it best to meet you today." Tiana felt her face warm. I didn't know it would be so soon." Vivian offered a gentle smile. "That's perfectly all right. May I speak with your mother? I'll need her approval before I move forward with any arrangements." Tiana's throat tightened. Her mother worked a double shift at the nursing home today. She wouldn't be home until after 9. Money was tight. Bills were piling up. And now someone who looked like she belonged to another world was asking to discuss fittings and arrangements like Tiana was some kind of VIP. "I can call her," Tiana said, though she didn't have a phone. She looked awkwardly toward Mrs. Delaney. "You can use the office phone," the librarian said kindly. Tiana followed her into the back office and dialed her mom's workplace. When her mother finally came to the phone, her voice was tired. "Tiana? Honey, is everything all right?" "Yeah. I just need you to speak to someone." She handed the receiver to Vivian, who explained everything in crisp, polite detail. Tiana watched anxiously as Vivian nodded at intervals, responding with, "Yes, I understand. Absolutely. She's a wonderful choice." After the call, Vivian handed the phone back to Tiana. "She agreed," Vivian said. "She's proud of you, you know." Tiana felt a tightness in her chest, not from fear this time but something much heavier. Her mother always supported her, even when she had so little to give. "When would you like me to meet you again?" Tiana asked. Vivian opened her planner. "Actually, if you're available now, I'd like to take you to our partner boutique downtown for a preliminary fitting. It won't take long." "Now, as in right this moment?" Her mind raced. She wasn't prepared. She hadn't even processed the invitation, let alone stepping into some fancy boutique where everything cost more than her family's monthly rent. She looked toward Devin, who was watching from the study room doorway, eyebrows raised. "You should go," he said quietly. "This is your moment." Tiana nodded slowly. She grabbed her backpack, her breath shaking as she walked toward the library exit. Vivian led her outside toward a sleek black car with tinted windows. Before Tiana stepped in, she looked back at the school, the one place she knew well, even with all its hard moments. Something told her that once she got into that car, everything in her life would shift. But she had no idea how drastically. Or that one of the secrets surrounding the sapphire ball was about to lead her closer to the first major twist in her story. The car door shut with a soft, expensive click. Nothing like the stiff, rattling door of the bus she usually took home. As the engine hummed to life beneath her feet, Tiana pressed her hands against her knees, trying to keep them from shaking. Vivian glanced over with a composed smile. "You're doing perfectly fine. I know this might feel overwhelming, but everything will make sense soon." Tiana managed a nod, though her throat was tight. The city blurred past the window, downtown Willow Creek rising in tall office buildings, cafes filled with after-school crowds, and boutiques she had only ever seen from a distance while riding the bus with her mom. Vivian spoke with the calm assurance of someone used to guiding people through unfamiliar territory. "The boutique is owned by a designer who often works with our charity events. They specialize in formal wear. You'll be treated with full respect." "Why me?" Tiana finally asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. I'm not used to anything like this." Vivian folded her hands neatly in her lap. "Because you deserve it. And because the committee believes in elevating young people who show promise." That answer sounded polished, almost rehearsed. It didn't settle the uneasiness curling inside her, but she stayed quiet, watching rows of storefronts roll past. The car halted in front of a boutique with tall windows framed by gold trim. Inside, mannequins wore gowns that shimmered under soft lighting. Silks, satins, beaded bodices, flowing skirts. Dresses that looked like they belonged in a movie scene, not in the life of a girl who washed her clothes in a shared laundry room on weekends. The door chimed as they stepped inside. "Welcome, Miss Clark," a woman greeted with an accent that sounded French. She had silver hair swept into a bun and wore glasses low on her nose. "And this must be our young guest." "Tiana, this is Madame Elise," Vivian introduced. "She'll be overseeing the fitting." Madame Elise inspected Tiana, not in a judgmental way but with a designer's eye, like she was studying a blank canvas ready to be transformed. "Ah, lovely shape. Gentle posture. Soft shoulders. Yes, we can do something beautiful here." Tiana blushed, unsure how to respond. Vivian placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "Go with her. I'll be waiting here." Madame Elise led her into a dressing area with cream curtains and gold hooks. Racks of dresses lined the walls, different cuts, colors, fabrics she didn't even know how to name. "Remove your shoes," Madame Elise instructed softly. "Stand straight, arms at your sides. I'll take your measurements first." The tape measure whispered across her shoulders, waist, hips. Tiana tried not to flinch. She wasn't used to being examined like this. Her clothes had always come from thrift stores, nothing ever measured specifically for her. "You have a delicate frame," Madame Elise murmured. "We shall accentuate that, not hide it." She scribbled notes onto a clipboard, then retrieved 3 dresses from a rack. "These are only for preliminary fitting," she said. "The final dress will be custom." Custom. The word alone made her heart skip. Tiana stepped behind the curtain and slipped into the first gown. It was soft lavender with thin straps and a flowing skirt. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She wasn't a princess or a model. She was still her, just wrapped in something that made her look important. She stepped out slowly. Vivian looked up from her seat, her eyes widening slightly. That's lovely. But it's not quite right for the event. Madame Elise circled her. The color washes her out under ballroom lighting. They tried the second dress, a deep emerald green with a fitted bodice. It hugged her body in a way that made her nervous, but it was breathtaking. Vivian tilted her head. Closer. Madame Elise nodded. Very close. But the neckline isn't suitable for the sapphire ball's formal standard. Finally, Tiana slipped into the third dress, a midnight blue gown with a subtle shimmer, long chiffon sleeves, and a soft, flowing skirt. When she looked at herself again, her breath caught. She didn't look like a girl who got mocked in hallways. She didn't look like someone who ate lunch alone. She didn't even look like someone who had been ashamed of her dress just days before. She looked confident. As she stepped out, both women went silent for a moment. Vivian stood slowly. Yes, she said at last. This is the direction. Madame Elise clasped her hands. Elegant. Modest. Striking. She will own the room. Tiana felt something warm flood her chest, a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. But before she could fully savor it, something strange happened. Vivian's phone buzzed. She checked the screen and her expression shifted, barely but enough for Tiana to notice. Her posture straightened. Her jaw tightened slightly. She looked alarmed. Is everything okay? Tiana asked. Vivian forced a smile. Yes, of course. Nothing to worry about. But her eyes said otherwise.
Madame Elise continued inspecting the dress, unaware. Vivian stepped aside and turned her back, speaking into the phone in a hushed voice. Tiana couldn't hear much, just fragments. She doesn't know yet. Yes, I have her now. I'll make sure it's handled. Tiana's stomach dropped. She wasn't sure what that conversation meant, but something was off. Very off. When Vivian returned, she was composed again. Too composed. Tiana, she said warmly, you look perfect. We'll begin customizing the final gown immediately. Tiana nodded, though unease gnawed at her insides. As she stepped back into the dressing room to change out of the gown, a quiet thought formed in her mind. What doesn't she want me to know? When she exited the boutique, slipping back into her everyday clothes, the city lights felt different. Brighter, but colder. Vivian guided her back to the car, but that buzzing sense of warning wouldn't leave her. Because whatever was happening behind the scenes, whatever Vivian was keeping hidden, it was tied to the sapphire ball. And that meant it was tied to her. What Tiana didn't know was that the first twist in her life was already unfolding. And the second one? It was closer than she imagined.
The drive back from the boutique was quieter than the ride there. Tiana stared out the window, tracing the city lights with her eyes, trying to sort through the swirl of excitement, fear, and confusion that had been growing since that afternoon. The boutique, the fittings, the shimmer of the midnight blue gown, it all felt like stepping into someone else's world. One she wasn't sure she was ready for. Vivian, sitting poised beside her, didn't break the silence. Her gaze was fixed on the road ahead, her hands resting neatly on her lap. Tiana wanted to ask about the strange phone call she had overheard, but something in Vivian's calm presence warned her against it. Some things I don't understand yet, Tiana thought, I probably shouldn't ask about. They arrived back at the Willow Creek High parking lot just as the last rays of sun disappeared behind the city skyline. Tiana unbuckled her seatbelt slowly, her mind still trapped in the images of the gown shimmering in the boutique's light. You did very well today, Vivian said finally, her voice soft but firm. You handled yourself with grace and composure, and that matters more than any dress. Tiana swallowed. Thank you. Her words felt small against the enormity of the day. I've never done anything like this before. You will, Vivian replied. And more than you think. As Tiana stepped out of the car, she felt the cool night air wash over her, a sharp contrast to the warmth inside the boutique. Something about the streets of downtown felt different at night. Quieter, more serious, like secrets hovered just above the pavement, waiting to be noticed. She shivered slightly. Tomorrow, Vivian added, we'll review the schedule for the dress customization. I'll also introduce you to a mentor who will help you navigate the event. Someone who's been in your position before. Tiana's curiosity piqued despite her lingering unease. A mentor? Someone who understood what it meant to feel out of place? Maybe this was exactly what she needed. Back at home, the apartment smelled like the evening's dinner, a simple stir-fry Danielle had thrown together after her double shift. Tiana's stomach was too full of adrenaline to eat. She set her bag down and moved toward her bedroom mirror once more. The reflection staring back at her wasn't the same girl from yesterday. The sadness and shame that had shadowed her face were still there, faint but dimmed by a new awareness. She was stepping into something bigger, something that mattered. Danielle appeared in the doorway, rubbing her temples. How was it? Tiana hesitated. It went okay. Really okay. She bit her lip. The dress, it's different. I don't even know how to explain it. Danielle smiled. I told you, baby. It's not the dress that matters, it's you. And seeing you stand in that dress, knowing what it represents, that's what counts. Tiana nodded, but the words felt incomplete. She had felt something today, a sense that her life could shift at any moment like a puzzle about to be solved. She didn't yet know the pieces, but she could feel the edges of the picture forming. Later that night, as she lay in bed, Tiana's thoughts kept circling back to the boutique and Vivian's subtle tension. Something in that phone call, those fragments of words she had caught, made her uneasy. Who was Vivian really? And what exactly did she mean by handled? Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Devin lit the screen. Hey, just wanted to see how your day went. Want to meet at the library tomorrow after school? Tiana smiled faintly, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the gown. Devin was steady, reliable, someone she could trust, even when the world around her felt uncertain. She typed a quick response, sure. See you then. As she set the phone down, sleep began to tug at her, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen was waiting just beyond her life. The sapphire ball, Vivian's calm but tense demeanor, the mysterious mentor. Everything felt like pieces of a puzzle that weren't fully revealed yet. Tiana closed her eyes, telling herself she was just imagining it. Maybe it was just nerves, the excitement of stepping into something new, something glamorous. But somewhere deep down she knew better. Because the night had its own secrets, and by morning the world she knew would start to tilt in a direction she had never imagined, toward opportunities, challenges, and revelations that would test her courage in ways she couldn't yet see. And the first real test wasn't the sapphire ball itself. No, it was waiting quietly, patiently in the days ahead. The night of the spring gala approached faster than Tiana could anticipate. The streets of Atlanta were alive with the hum of Friday evening traffic, neon lights reflecting off wet asphalt from an earlier drizzle. Tiana couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the day at the boutique, the shimmer of her midnight blue gown and Vivian's subtle tension. Something told her this wasn't just a night of dancing. It was the beginning of a change she couldn't yet understand. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Garrett Langford was surveying the preparations for the gala. Tall, broad-shouldered, and impeccably dressed in a classic black tuxedo, Garrett was a man of influence, the kind who moved silently in the world of philanthropy and business. Atlanta knew his name for his charitable donations and real estate empire, but few knew the private side, the side that noticed small injustices, quiet courage, and unspoken acts of resilience. Tonight, Garrett was not attending for social clout. He was attending because his team had tipped him off about a young girl, invited as a scholarship representative, who had overcome adversity in a way that resonated with him. Something about her story struck him as familiar, as if he had seen her courage somewhere before, though he couldn't place it yet. Back at the Marriott Ballroom, the gala was already in full swing. Guests glided across the polished floor, their laughter mixing with soft piano and violin music. Chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, scattering light across the room. The families who had prepared for months mingled with elegance and pride, the kind that Tiana could feel pressing against her from every side. Tiana entered with Danielle at her side, her hands gripping the delicate fabric of the gown. She felt every stare before she even stepped onto the dance floor. Her heart pounded, a steady rhythm of fear and excitement. "Breathe," Danielle whispered. "You've got this." Tiana nodded, forcing herself to relax. She reminded herself that the dress was not about wealth, It was about pride, family, and courage. Still, the anxiety gnawed at her. Every whisper felt magnified. Every giggle seemed aimed at her. She scanned the crowd, wishing for a friendly face. And then she noticed him. Across the room, near the refreshments and away from the chatter, a man stood quietly observing her. His presence was calm but commanding. Silver threads streaked through his hair, giving him an air of wisdom that contrasted with the power he exuded. Garrett Langford's eyes were fixed on Tiana, but not with judgment. With curiosity, yes. Interest, yes. But more than that, a recognition of something rare and unspoken, bravery in the face of discomfort. Tiana did not notice him, but someone had. Savannah Brooks, the same girl who had mocked her earlier, leaned toward Jenna Mitchell and whispered, "Who's that man watching the new girl?" Jenna squinted. "No idea. But he doesn't look like he belongs with the other donors." Meanwhile, Tiana tried to melt into the edge of the crowd, clutching Danielle's hand. She wished she could disappear, wished she could step outside and leave the glimmering world behind. The music swelled, the signal for the first dance of the evening, and she felt a tightness in her chest. "You'll be fine," Danielle said. "Just follow my lead." But Garrett Langford didn't wait for the formalities. He had been waiting for the right moment, the moment when courage, despite fear, would reveal itself. He stepped lightly across the marble floor, observing Tiana's hesitance, noticing the way she tried to shrink behind her mother. Something inside him stirred, and he decided it was time to intervene. Across the room, cameras flashed as other attendees posed for pictures. Garrett's presence was understated but deliberate. He approached the edge of the dance floor, eyes never leaving Tiana, calculating, choosing his moment. Tiana felt a hand on her shoulder. Not Danielle's. Another hand. She turned slowly, startled. "May I have this dance?" a deep, calm voice asked. Tiana froze. She looked up to see Garrett Langford standing before her, a slight, encouraging smile on his face. The entire room seemed to hush, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Guests paused mid-conversation, eyes darting between the billionaire and the girl in the midnight blue gown. Tiana's jaw dropped. "And me?" "Yes, you," Garrett said simply, extending his hand. His voice was firm but warm, and something in it made her feel as if she'd been seen, not for her dress, her appearance, or her status, but for her. A ripple went through the crowd. Savannah and Jenna exchanged wide-eyed looks, disbelief and discomfort written plainly on their faces. They had expected to mock, to revel in the embarrassment of someone like Tiana, but now, the room had shifted. Attention was on her, not in ridicule but in admiration. Danielle squeezed her hand. "Go on, baby," she whispered. "You deserve this." Tiana's fingers trembled as she placed hers in Garrett's. She felt the warmth of his hand, steady and confident. Together they stepped onto the dance floor. Music swelled. Tiana's heart pounded. She tried to mirror his grace, unsure of herself at first. But Garrett guided her gently, giving her small cues, helping her find the rhythm. With each step, confidence grew. The whispers faded into silence. Cameras clicked. Phones lifted to capture the moment. The crowd was mesmerized. Not because of the dress, not because of the wealth, not because of status, but because of the courage radiating from a young girl who had refused to be diminished. And somewhere in that room, Tiana began to realize something powerful. This wasn't just about a dance. It was about recognition, validation, possibility. Yet even in the glow of the moment, a thread of unease lingered. The way Garrett looked at her carried not only admiration but a quiet intensity, as if he knew more about the path she was about to walk than she could ever imagine. Somewhere behind the crowd, someone else noticed too, a faint shadow of curiosity, silent and unreadable, watching her every movement. And in that moment, Tiana had no idea that tonight would mark the beginning of events that would reshape not only her life but the lives of those around her. Because while the room applauded the grace and poise of the girl in the midnight blue gown, Garrett Langford's eyes held a story waiting to be revealed. A story that would lead to her first life-altering twist. And the second one, hidden deeper, was already quietly positioning itself just beyond the edge of the ballroom lights. The night had begun. And nothing would ever be the same. The cafeteria felt unusually bright that afternoon, as if the sun had dipped a little closer to the windows just to watch what would happen next. Kayla sat alone at the corner table, her notebook open but untouched, her fingers tracing the edge of the page. The morning's events still clung to her. Eleanor's slow smile, the car ride, the overwhelming sense that someone powerful had looked at her and actually seen her. Not as the girl with the old dress. Not as the girl who kept her lunch hidden in a brown paper bag so nobody would mock what was inside. But as someone worth noticing. Still, the fear lingered. What if Eleanor changed her mind? What if the invitation was just a moment of pity? What if Kayla had already ruined it without knowing? She didn't dare tell anyone, not even her mom. There was something precious about the whole thing, and she didn't want to shatter it by speaking too soon. As she tried to focus on her book, she didn't notice the two cheerleaders who had shifted their chairs closer. They were talking loud enough for her to hear, on purpose. "Well, I guess the charity cases are getting bold these days," Madison said, her voice dripping with the kind of confidence that only came from being adored for reasons she hadn't earned. "Right? I heard someone actually offered to drive her this morning," Brielle added. "Like, who does that for her?" Kayla kept her eyes on her notebook. She could feel her face heating, a tight pinch in her chest growing stronger. She would not give them the satisfaction of looking upset. She'd been dealing with their whispers for years. New rumors wouldn't break her. But today the timing stung in a way she hadn't prepared for. Because for the first time she had something to lose. A tray slid onto the table in front of her, and Kayla looked up, startled. Sean dropped into the seat across from her, eyebrows raised, a half grin on his face like he hadn't even considered asking for permission. "Why do you look like you're expecting an asteroid to hit the school?" he asked, unwrapping his sandwich. Kayla forced a weak smile. "Just thinking." He studied her for a moment. Sean wasn't the type to push, but he wasn't blind either. "Thinking about the woman who picked you up this morning?" Kayla's heart stopped. "How do you?" "People talk," he said, simply shrugging. "But I figured I'd ask you before I listened to anyone else." That alone disarmed her more than she wanted to admit. She exhaled, closing her notebook. "It's nothing dramatic," she said softly. "I just met someone who was nice to me. Really nice. And I don't know what to do with that." Sean nodded, chewing slowly as if giving her space to continue. "When you're used to being invisible," Kayla said, picking at the tiny tear on her sleeve, "it's scary when someone finally notices you. Especially someone who could change everything." Sean leaned forward slightly. "Does this person want something from you?" "No," she answered instantly. "That's the thing. She didn't treat me like, like I was worth less." Sean leaned back, seemingly satisfied. "Then maybe let yourself trust it a little." "Trust?" The word sat heavy in her mind, wobbling between possibility and fear. Before she could respond, the principal's voice echoed through the cafeteria speakers. "Kayla Thompson, please report to the front office." Kayla Thompson. Every student in the cafeteria paused. Heads turned. Even Madison and Brielle quieted their whispers. Kayla froze. No one ever called her to the office. Ever. Sean's eyebrows lifted. "Want me to walk with you?" She shook her head, gathering her notebook with shaky hands. "No, I'm fine. I'll just see what they need." But she wasn't fine. Her stomach twisted with every step she took. The hallway felt too long, too silent, too full of what if she didn't want to acknowledge. When she reached the office window, the secretary looked up with a bright, practiced smile. "Kayla, there's someone here to see you." Kayla blinked. "Someone?" "Oh." The secretary gestured toward the waiting area. Kayla stepped around the corner and nearly stopped breathing. Standing beside the chairs, dressed in a crisp navy coat and heels, was Eleanor Grant. Again, the billionaire herself. Right here. In her school. Eleanor offered a small smile that softened the sharpness of her features. "Hello again, sweetheart. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Kayla felt the world spin. Her pulse pounded against her ribs. Words evaporated before they reached her mouth. I don't understand," she whispered. Eleanor stepped closer. "There's something I want to talk to you about. Something important." And I thought you deserved to hear it in person. The secretary busied herself with paperwork, pretending not to be listening, but the entire room seemed to hum with tension. Kayla's voice trembled as she asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Eleanor's expression softened even further. "No, my dear. Quite the opposite. But I discovered something this morning, something about you, that changes everything." Kayla's breath hitched. "What did you discover?" Eleanor gave her a look filled with something Kayla couldn't decode, part sorrow, part hope, part awe. And then she said the words that froze Kayla in place. "I believe you're connected to someone from my past. Someone I lost a long time ago." Kayla felt every sound in the office dissolve around her. Her knees weakened. Connected? Lost? What did that even mean? Before she could ask, Eleanor gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I need to tell you the truth," she said softly. "But not here." Kayla swallowed hard. "Then, where?" Eleanor motioned toward the door. "Come with me. Just for a few minutes. You deserve answers, Kayla." The secretary's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't interfere. Kayla hesitated only for a moment, then nodded. As she followed Eleanor out of the school building, one thought echoed louder than the rest. Whatever she was about to learn, her life was about to change forever. The car ride was quiet, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was the kind that pressed against Kayla's chest, heavy with questions she didn't yet know how to ask. The city moved past the window in slow motion. Brick buildings, familiar streets, the corner grocery store she passed every day, yet nothing felt familiar anymore. Eleanor Grant sat beside her, composed, hands folded neatly in her lap. She hadn't said much since they left the school parking lot, only that they were heading somewhere private. Somewhere safe. Kayla's fingers twisted together. "Am I in trouble for leaving school?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor turned to her, surprised. "Oh no, not at all. I spoke to the principal personally. Everything is cleared." That alone unsettled Kayla more than it reassured her. People like Eleanor Grant didn't just speak to principals. They were listened to. The car pulled into a quiet residential area on the north side of Atlanta. Tall oak trees lined the streets, their branches forming a natural canopy overhead. The houses were elegant but not flashy, old money, Kayla thought. History lived here. They stopped in front of a large brick home with white columns and wide steps leading up to the front door. "This is my residence," Eleanor said gently. "I won't ask you to come in unless you're comfortable." Kayla stared at the house. Her instincts screamed that this moment mattered, that whatever she chose now would set something irreversible in motion. "I want to know," she said finally. "Whatever it is, I want to know." Eleanor studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right." Inside, the house smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh flowers. Family photographs lined the walls, fundraisers, galas, ribbon cuttings, but also quieter moments. A younger Eleanor laughing beside a little girl with braided hair and bright eyes. Kayla slowed, staring at the photo. "Who's that?" she asked. Eleanor's steps faltered. Her name was Naomi. Kayla's heart tightened. What happened to her? Eleanor didn't answer right away. She led Kayla into a sitting room filled with soft light and motioned for her to sit. Eleanor lowered herself into the chair across from her, suddenly looking older than before. "I've never told this story publicly," she said. "Not fully." Kayla nodded, afraid to interrupt. "Many years ago," Eleanor continued, "before my companies, before the money, before any of this, I had a sister, younger than me, brilliant, kind, determined. Naomi." Kayla's breath caught. Something about the name felt strangely familiar, though she couldn't explain why. "She fell in love with someone our family didn't approve of," Eleanor said quietly. "A man who promised her everything and delivered almost nothing. When she became pregnant, she disappeared. Cut off contact. Changed her name." Kayla's pulse quickened. "We searched for years," Eleanor went on. "But life moved on. Careers. Responsibilities. Eventually, the search faded into grief." Kayla swallowed hard. "What does this have to do with me?" Eleanor reached into her purse and pulled out an old photograph. She slid it across the table. Kayla picked it up. The room tilted. The girl in the photo was smiling shyly, wearing a faded yellow dress. Her eyes, those eyes, looked back at Kayla like a reflection. That looks like, Kayla's voice broke. You, Eleanor said softly. At least it could have been you. Kayla shook her head. No. My mom is Danielle Thompson. She works 2 jobs. She's never said anything about. Danielle Thompson, Eleanor repeated. Was Naomi Thompson before she changed her name? The words crashed into Kayla like a wave. No, she whispered. That's not possible. I ran a background check after meeting you, Eleanor said, her voice steady but pained. Your birth records, the timeline, the resemblance, it all aligns. Kayla stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You don't know my mom. You don't know what she's been through. I know, Eleanor said, rising as well. That's why I'm telling you first. Kayla paced, her thoughts spinning. So what are you saying? That you're, what? My aunt. Eleanor's eyes glistened. Yes. The word echoed in the room. Kayla laughed once, sharp and hollow. This doesn't make sense. If my mom had a rich sister, we wouldn't have struggled. We wouldn't have lived the way we did. Eleanor nodded slowly. Naomi didn't want my help. She was hurt. Angry. She wanted to prove she could survive without our family. By the time I found out how bad things had gotten, it was too late. Kayla stopped pacing. Too late for what? For reconciliation, Eleanor said. She passed away 5 years ago. The room went silent. Kayla felt the floor drop beneath her. Her chest tightened, breath shallow and uneven. You're lying. I wish I were, Eleanor whispered. Tears blurred Kayla's vision. Her mother, her whole life, had never mentioned another family, another world, another truth. So what now? Kayla asked, her voice trembling. Why tell me? Because, Eleanor said, stepping closer, I see Naomi in you. Her resilience, her pride. And because I don't want to lose you the way I lost her. Kayla's hands shook. You don't get to decide that. I know, Eleanor said quickly. That's why this is your choice. A long pause stretched between them. I don't want money, Kayla said quietly. I don't want pity. Eleanor nodded. Then don't take it. Take the truth. Take the opportunity to decide your future with all the facts. Kayla wiped her face. If my mom doesn't know you found me? She doesn't, Eleanor said. And I won't tell her unless you want me to. That stopped Kayla cold. You're asking me to keep this from her? I'm asking you to protect her until you're ready, Eleanor replied. Kayla turned toward the window, watching sunlight dance across the garden outside. Everything she believed about herself had shifted in a single afternoon. The girl with the old dress. The invisible one. The one people pitied. She wasn't just any of those things. She turned back to Eleanor. If this is real, then I need time. Eleanor smiled gently. Take all the time you need. As Kayla reached for the door, Eleanor added one last thing, her voice barely above a whisper. There's something else you should know. Something I haven't told anyone yet. Kayla paused. What? Eleanor's expression darkened, the weight of a second truth settling into her gaze. Someone else has been looking for you too. Kayla's stomach dropped. Who? Eleanor didn't answer right away. And in that silence, Kayla knew this was only the beginning. Kayla barely slept that night. She lay on her side, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling above her bed, listening to the quiet breathing of her mother in the next room. Every sound felt louder than usual, the hum of the refrigerator, a passing car, the distant bark of a dog somewhere down the block. Her mind replayed Eleanor's final words again and again. Someone else has been looking for you too. Oh, and why now? When morning came, it arrived without mercy. Kayla moved through her routine like she was underwater, showering, dressing, packing her bag, each action automatic. Her mother, Danielle, stood at the stove flipping pancakes, humming softly, completely unaware that the ground beneath their lives had shifted. Morning, sleepyhead, Danielle said, glancing over her shoulder. You okay? You look pale. Kayla forced a smile. Just tired. Big test today. Danielle nodded sympathetically. You'll do great. You always do. That simple confidence almost broke her. Kayla swallowed hard, grabbed a pancake she didn't want, and kissed her mother's cheek before heading out the door. At school everything felt wrong. Whispers followed her through the halls, not cruel this time but curious. Phones lifted, screens glowing. Someone had posted a short clip from the gala. Kayla in the midnight blue dress, dancing with a man everyone now knew was a billionaire. The video had spread overnight. She looks different, someone murmured. That's her? I heard he picked her on purpose. Kayla kept her head down. In her first class she barely heard the teacher. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A private number. She ignored it. A minute later it buzzed again. Then again. Her chest tightened. During lunch, Sean slid into the seat across from her, eyes wide. Okay, you're officially famous. Kayla sighed. I don't want to talk about it. Fair, he said quickly. But something weird happened. Her stomach clenched. What kind of weird? My aunt works downtown, Sean continued. She asked me this morning if I knew you. Said a man came by her office asking questions. About a girl matching your description. Kayla's fork froze midair. What man? Sean hesitated. She said he was well-dressed. Older. Not flashy. And very intense. Eleanor's words echoed in her mind. Someone else has been looking for you too. Kayla stood abruptly. I need some air. She didn't wait for permission. Outside, the autumn breeze cut through her sweater. She pulled her phone from her pocket and stared at the missed calls. Then, with shaking fingers, she dialed the number Eleanor had given her the night before. It rang once. Kayla, Eleanor answered immediately. I was hoping you'd call. Her voice alone made Kayla's throat tighten. You said someone else was looking for me. Who is he? Pause. Too long. His name is Thomas Whitaker, Eleanor said carefully. And if my suspicions are correct, he believes he has a claim to you. Kayla's heart slammed. A claim? Naomi wasn't the only one who disappeared, Eleanor continued. The man she was involved with, your biological father, had connections. Dangerous ones. When Naomi left, he spent years trying to find her. And now, somehow, he's found traces of you. Kayla felt dizzy. My father is dead, she whispered. My mom told me he died before I was born. Eleanor exhaled slowly. That may not be entirely true. The world tilted. So you lied to me, Kayla said, her voice shaking. Or my mom did. No, Eleanor said gently. She protected you. Kayla leaned against the brick wall, knees weak. Why now? Why after all this time? Because you were invisible, Eleanor said quietly. Until you weren't. Kayla closed her eyes. The dress. The gala. The dance. She had been seen. I don't want him near me, Kayla said firmly. I know, Eleanor replied. That's why I need you to trust me. Trust you how? By staying close, Eleanor said. By letting me help you prepare. Prepare for what? For the truth, Eleanor answered. And for the possibility that he may try to reach out himself. The bell rang loudly, jolting Kayla back to reality. Students poured through the doors, laughter echoing across the courtyard. What do I do? Kayla whispered. For now, Eleanor said, live your life. Don't confront your mother yet. Don't answer unknown numbers. And most importantly, don't walk alone after school. Kayla's pulse raced. Are you saying I'm in danger? I'm saying, Eleanor replied, that the past doesn't like to stay buried. The call ended. The rest of the day passed in fragments. Faces, voices, classrooms. None of it felt real. When the final bell rang, Kayla packed her bag slowly, scanning the hallway before stepping outside. That was when she saw him. Across the street, leaning against a black sedan, stood a man in a charcoal coat. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes locked onto her the moment she appeared. Not curious, not surprised, certain. Kayla's breath caught. Her phone vibrated again. Unknown number. She didn't answer. The man straightened, adjusting his cuffs, his gaze never leaving hers. A faint smile tugged at his lips, not warm, not cruel. Possessive. A car horn blared behind her, snapping her out of it. She turned her head for a split second, and when she looked back, the man was gone. But the message remained. Her phone lit up with a single text. "You look just like her." Kayla's hands shook as she stared at the screen. Whoever Thomas Whitaker was, he had found her. And the dance that changed her life had awakened something far more dangerous than she ever imagined. Kayla didn't tell her mother about the text. She sat at the small kitchen table that evening, stirring a bowl of soup she hadn't touched, listening to Danielle talk about her shift at the hospital. Danielle's voice was steady, comforting, familiar, anchoring Kayla to the life she had always known. A life that now felt fragile, like glass under pressure. "And Mrs. Henson finally smiled today," Danielle said, chuckling softly. "That alone made the whole shift worth it." Kayla nodded, forcing a smile. Her phone rested face down beside her plate. The message burned into her mind. "You look just like her." She excused herself early, claiming homework, and retreated to her room. Once the door was closed, she locked it, something she had never done before. She leaned against it, heart pounding, then slid down until she was sitting on the floor. Who was he really? And how much did he know? She opened her phone again, rereading the text. No number. No profile. Just those 4 words. Kayla typed a reply, then erased it. Typed again. Deleted. Eleanor's warning echoed in her head. Don't respond. She tossed the phone onto her bed and pressed her palms to her face, breathing slowly until the panic dulled into something manageable. The next morning, a black SUV was parked across the street. Kayla noticed it the moment she pulled back the curtains. It didn't belong to any of the neighbors. The engine wasn't running, but the windows were tinted dark enough that she couldn't see inside. Her heart skipped. She watched for a full minute. Nothing happened. "You're imagining things," she whispered to herself. At breakfast, Danielle moved around the kitchen humming, completely unaware. "I might pick up an extra shift tonight," she said casually. "We're short-staffed again." Kayla stiffened. "Tonight?" "Just until midnight," Danielle replied. "Why?" Kayla forced herself to relax. "No reason." She walked to school instead of taking the bus, scanning every street corner, every parked car. The SUV was gone, but the unease stayed with her. By lunchtime, the whispers had changed again. Not about the dress. Not about the dance. About her. "I heard she's related to someone important. My cousin says she's getting special treatment. Why would a billionaire show up at her school?" Kayla kept her head down, but she felt the shift. Curiosity had replaced mockery. And that scared her more. In the library after school, Sean slid into the chair across from her, his usual lightness missing. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly. Kayla's stomach tightened. "Okay. Is someone bothering you?" he asked. "Because yesterday when I left, I saw a man watching the school. Same description my aunt gave." Kayla's pulse spiked. "Did he talk to you?" "No," Sean said. "But he was watching the doors. Like he was waiting for someone." Kayla closed her eyes briefly. The fear she'd been holding back pressed harder. "I don't know who he is," she said carefully. "But I don't think he's here for anything good." Sean leaned closer. "Then you're not walking home alone today." Before she could argue, the librarian cleared her throat loudly. Sean leaned back, but his message was clear. When school ended, Kayla spotted Eleanor's driver waiting at the curb. Relief washed over her so strongly she almost cried. Inside the car, Eleanor was already on the phone. She ended the call the moment Kayla sat down. "He was there, wasn't he?" Eleanor asked. Kayla nodded. "I didn't see his face clearly, but I know it was him." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "That confirms it. He's testing boundaries." "What does he want?" Kayla asked. "Money? Control?" "Neither," Eleanor said grimly. "He wants recognition. Legacy. And when men like Thomas Whitaker lose control of one thing, they look for another." Kayla hugged her backpack to her chest. "I'm not a thing." "I know," Eleanor said softly. "But to him you represent unfinished business." The car pulled up in front of Eleanor's home instead of Kayla's apartment. "We're not going home?" Kayla asked, alarmed. Not tonight, Eleanor replied. I've already spoken to your mother. She thinks you're staying over for tutoring. Kayla hesitated. She trusted you that easily? Eleanor met her gaze. She trusts me because once, she trusted my sister. The words settled heavy between them. Inside the house, Kayla paced while Eleanor made tea. The walls that once felt elegant now felt like a fortress. You said you lost Naomi, Kayla said quietly. But did she ever talk about him? About Thomas? Eleanor's hands paused over the kettle. She did. In whispers. He was charming at first. Generous. But he believed love meant ownership. Kayla shuddered. There's more, Eleanor added. Something I didn't tell you because I hoped I was wrong. Kayla turned slowly. Tell me. Eleanor met her eyes. Thomas Whitaker has been funding private investigators for years. He doesn't let go of what he believes belongs to him. Kayla's voice trembled. And what do you believe? Eleanor stepped closer. I believe you belong to yourself. And I intend to protect that. A knock echoed through the house. Both of them froze. Eleanor glanced toward the door, then at Kayla. Stay here. The knock came again, slow, deliberate. Kayla's heart pounded as Eleanor walked toward the door. She stopped short of opening it, peering through the security screen. Her face hardened. It's him, Eleanor said quietly. Kayla's breath caught. From behind the door, a calm male voice drifted through the hallway. Eleanor, the man said smoothly. We need to talk. It's about the girl. Kayla pressed a hand to her mouth, fear flooding her veins. Eleanor straightened, her voice cold and steady. There is nothing to discuss. Pause. Then his voice again, lower, edged with threat. She's mine whether you like it or not. Kayla felt the truth settle deep in her bones. The danger was no longer watching from afar. It was standing at the door. The silence after Thomas Whitaker's words felt heavier than the knock itself. Kayla stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it through the door. Eleanor didn't move either. She remained perfectly still, one hand resting against the frame, her posture calm but resolute, like someone who had waited years for this moment and refused to be shaken by it. You should leave, Eleanor said evenly. A soft chuckle drifted through the door. You always did have a talent for pretending you're in control. Kayla's stomach twisted. There was no anger in his voice. No raised volume. That made it worse. I won't ask again, Eleanor replied. You are not welcome here. Another pause followed. Kayla imagined him standing there, composed, patient, calculating. The kind of man who didn't rush because he never doubted the outcome. I only came to see her, Thomas said. You can't keep her hidden forever. She isn't hidden, Eleanor snapped, the edge finally breaking through. She's protected. That's where you're wrong, he answered calmly. Protection implies danger. And I'm not the danger you've convinced yourself I am. Kayla felt Eleanor tense. From the hallway, Kayla could see Eleanor's reflection in the glass of a framed photograph. Her jaw was tight, her eyes sharp. This wasn't fear. It was recognition. I know exactly who you are, Eleanor said. And I know what you're capable of. Thomas sighed, almost amused. Then you know I don't lose what matters to me. Kayla's legs felt weak. She backed up slowly, pressing herself against the wall, her thoughts racing. He knows I'm here. He knows this house. He knows everything. Eleanor turned slightly, just enough to meet Kayla's eyes. Go upstairs, she whispered. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. Kayla hesitated. What if? Now, Eleanor said firmly. Kayla obeyed. Each step up the staircase felt like it echoed through the house. She reached the guest room, shut the door quietly, and turned the lock with trembling fingers. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she pressed her ear to the door, straining to hear. Downstairs, Eleanor opened the door just enough to step outside, pulling it closed behind her. Kayla heard Thomas's voice more clearly now. You've grown colder, he remarked. And you've grown bolder, Eleanor replied. Showing up unannounced is a mistake. Thomas laughed softly. You always did think you could scare me. I'm not trying to scare you, Eleanor said. I'm warning you. There was a shift in his tone then, subtle but unmistakable. You don't get to rewrite history, Eleanor. Naomi made her choices. And so did I. You destroyed her peace, Eleanor said. And I won't let you do the same to her daughter. A long pause followed. Kayla held her breath. So you told her, Thomas said slowly. Interesting. Eleanor didn't respond. I wondered how long it would take, he continued. She deserves to know who she comes from. She already does, Eleanor replied sharply. And it's not you. That's not your decision, Thomas said. Blood has a way of asserting itself. Kayla's hands clenched into fists. I'm not his. You don't care about her, Eleanor said. You care about what she represents. That's where you're wrong, Thomas said quietly. She represents continuity. And I don't abandon my legacy. Eleanor stepped closer. Your legacy ends with you. Silence fell again. Then Thomas spoke, his voice colder now. You always were sentimental. That's why you lose. Footsteps moved closer to the door. Kayla's heart slammed. I'll be patient, Thomas said. But understand this, I won't be shut out. Eleanor's voice was steady. If you contact her again, I will take action. Thomas chuckled. You already have. Bringing her into your world. Dressing her up. Putting her in front of cameras. Kayla flinched. You lit the signal fire, he continued. All I did was follow the smoke. A car door opened. Then another. Footsteps retreated. Kayla waited, counting her breaths. Minutes passed. Finally, she heard Eleanor return inside, the door closing firmly behind her. Footsteps approached the staircase. Kayla, Eleanor called softly. It's all right. Kayla unlocked the door and stepped into the hallway. Her legs nearly gave out as Eleanor reached her, placing both hands on her shoulders. He's gone, Eleanor said. For now. Kayla swallowed. He said I belong to him. Eleanor's eyes softened. He says many things. Not all of them are true. But he believes it, Kayla whispered. And that's what scares me. Eleanor nodded. That's why we're going to be very careful from now on. They sat together in the sitting room, the lights dimmed, the house unusually quiet. I didn't tell him where you were, Eleanor said. And I won't. What about my mom? Kayla asked. What if he goes to her? Eleanor's expression tightened. That's a possibility. Kayla's chest constricted. Then she needs to know. Not yet, Eleanor said gently. Danielle has already endured enough loss. We need to protect her too. Kayla stared at her hands. I hate that everyone keeps deciding things for me. Eleanor reached across the table. Then help me decide together. Kayla met her gaze. What happens now? Eleanor inhaled slowly. Now we prepare. Quietly. Legally. And with boundaries he can't cross. Kayla nodded, though fear still churned inside her. And the gala? Kayla asked. The follow-up event. The interviews. Eleanor hesitated. That's exactly where he won't expect us to retreat, she said finally. Which may be our advantage. Kayla's pulse quickened. You want me to keep showing up? I want you to live, Eleanor said firmly. Not hide. Kayla leaned back exhausted. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Eleanor smiled sadly. Your mother said the same thing once. Kayla looked up. When? When she walked away, Eleanor replied. With you in her arms. The weight of that settled deep in Kayla's chest. Upstairs, her phone buzzed softly in her pocket. She pulled it out. Another message. Unknown number. 3 words this time. We will talk. Kayla's fingers trembled as she showed Eleanor the screen. Eleanor's face hardened instantly. He's testing you, she said. Kayla whispered, and if I don't respond? Eleanor met her eyes. Then he'll escalate. Kayla stared at the message, heart racing. Outside, somewhere beyond the gates, a car engine started. And Kayla knew with chilling certainty. This was no longer about the past. It was about what Thomas Whitaker intended to take next. Kayla didn't respond to the message. She stared at the glowing screen until it dimmed, then slipped the phone back into her pocket like it might burn her skin. Eleanor watched her closely, saying nothing, allowing the silence to stretch. It was the kind of silence that demanded a decision. "You did the right thing," Eleanor said finally. Kayla exhaled shakily. "It doesn't feel like it." "It rarely does," Eleanor replied. "Strength is uncomfortable at first." That night, Kayla stayed in the guest room, fully dressed, lights off, listening to the house breathe around her. Every creak made her tense. Every distant sound pulled her back to the front door and Thomas Whitaker's calm, claiming voice. Sleep came in fragments. By morning, Eleanor had already set things in motion. A private driver took Kayla to school, dropping her off at a side entrance usually reserved for staff. The principal greeted her personally, smiling too wide, eyes flicking nervously toward the parking lot. "Everything all right?" Kayla asked. "Of course," he said quickly. "Just heightened awareness." She knew what that meant. Inside, the school felt different. Not hostile. Not welcoming either. Cautious. Teachers lingered in hallways longer than usual. Security guards walked slower, more deliberately. At her locker, Sean was waiting. "You disappear for one night," he said quietly, "and the whole place turns into a fortress." Kayla managed a weak smile. "I needed space." He studied her face. "Did he come back?" She hesitated, then nodded. Sean's jaw tightened. "Then you're not alone today. Not at lunch. Not after school. Got it?" She wanted to argue. She didn't. Throughout the day, Kayla felt watched, not by Thomas but by the ripple he'd caused. People noticed her now in a way that made her skin prickle. Not admiration. Not envy. Interest. And interest could turn dangerous. By mid-afternoon, Eleanor's assistant called Kayla out of class. The office handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a simple card. "Tonight. Atlanta Symphony Hall. Private charity reception. Your presence is requested." Kayla's heart sank. She called Eleanor immediately. "You said we'd be careful," Kayla said, trying to keep her voice steady. "And we will be," Eleanor replied. "That's why you need to be there." "That's exactly where he'd expect me to show up." "Yes," Eleanor said. "And that's why we control the environment." Kayla pressed her forehead against the cool wall. "What if he's already there?" "He might be," Eleanor admitted. "But he won't have access to you." Kayla wasn't convinced. "You sound very sure." "I've dealt with men like Thomas before," Eleanor said. "They rely on fear and surprise. Take those away and they lose leverage." After school, the driver took Kayla straight back to Eleanor's house. The dress waiting for her wasn't extravagant, elegant, understated, tailored with intention rather than flash. Kayla stared at herself in the mirror once she was dressed. She barely recognized the girl looking back. Not because of the clothes. Because of the steadiness in her eyes. At the Symphony Hall, the air buzzed with polished conversation and restrained laughter. Crystal glasses chimed softly. Donors and executives mingled beneath golden lighting. Cameras were discreet but present. Kayla stayed close to Eleanor, her hand resting lightly on Eleanor's arm. She felt exposed but not powerless. Then she saw him. Thomas Whitaker stood near the back of the room, speaking with two men Kayla didn't recognize. He looked relaxed, confident, as if he belonged everywhere at once. When his eyes met Kayla's, he smiled. Not wide, not friendly, certain. Her chest tightened, but she didn't look away. Eleanor felt the shift immediately. "He's here," she said quietly. "I know," Kayla replied. They moved toward a group of board members, placing bodies and conversation between Kayla and Thomas. But Kayla could still feel him, like a shadow that didn't need light. Minutes passed. Then Eleanor was called away briefly by a donor. "I'll be right there," Eleanor told Kayla. "Stay with the group." Kayla nodded. That was when Thomas moved. Not toward her. Past her. He brushed close enough that she caught his scent, clean, sharp, intentional. "Good evening, Kayla," he said softly without stopping. Her breath caught. "How do you know my name?" she asked, turning despite herself. He paused just long enough to face her. Up close, his eyes were unsettlingly calm. "I know many things," he replied, "including how brave you're pretending to be." I'm not pretending, Kayla said, surprising herself. His smile flickered. We'll see. Before she could respond, he stepped away, melting back into the crowd. Eleanor returned moments later, reading Kayla's expression instantly. He spoke to you, Eleanor said. Kayla nodded. He's not afraid. No, Eleanor replied. He's adapting. The evening continued under tension, but nothing exploded. No confrontation. No scene. And that worried Kayla more than anything. Back at the house later that night, Eleanor's security team reported no breaches. No tail. No unusual activity. You see, Eleanor said gently. We're holding our ground. Kayla nodded, but unease curled in her stomach. She went upstairs, closed the door, and finally allowed herself to sit. Her phone buzzed. A new message. No number. No greeting. Just coordinates. Below it, one sentence. Tomorrow. You deserve the full truth. Alone. Kayla's pulse thundered. She didn't respond. She didn't delete it either. Instead, she stared at the screen, realizing something chilling and unavoidable. Thomas Whitaker wasn't chasing her anymore. He was inviting her. And the most dangerous choices weren't the ones forced on you. They were the ones that made you believe you had control. Kayla stared at the coordinates long after her phone screen dimmed. She copied them into a map app, her heart thudding as the location appeared. An old marina just outside the city, tucked between abandoned warehouses and a stretch of water locals barely noticed anymore. It wasn't isolated, but it wasn't public either. The kind of place where conversations could disappear into the wind. She locked her phone and pressed it to her chest. Alone. That word unsettled her more than the message itself. Downstairs, Eleanor was on the phone, her voice low and controlled. Kayla lingered at the top of the stairs, listening. Yes, I understand, Eleanor said. No, not yet. He's waiting. Waiting. Kayla swallowed. That night she barely slept. Her mind battled itself, fear against curiosity, instinct against a longing she didn't want to admit. She wanted answers. Real ones. Not pieces handed to her when others decided she was ready. By morning, the decision felt inevitable. At breakfast, Danielle called to check in. Kayla listened to her mother's familiar voice, steady and loving, and guilt pressed against her ribs. You sound tired, Danielle said. You sure everything's okay? Yes, Mom, Kayla replied, forcing brightness. Just a lot going on. Well, don't forget who you are, Danielle said gently. And don't let anyone rush you into something that doesn't feel right. Kayla closed her eyes. Too late. After the call, Kayla found Eleanor in the study. I got another message, Kayla said quietly. Eleanor looked up instantly. What did it say? Kayla hesitated, then handed her the phone. Eleanor's expression hardened as she read it. This is a mistake. I need to go, Kayla said. No, Eleanor replied sharply. You don't. I do, Kayla insisted. Because every time someone else decides for me, he wins. Eleanor stood. He's manipulating you. Maybe, Kayla said. But I can't live my life running from questions. Eleanor studied her for a long moment, seeing not a frightened girl, but a young woman standing on the edge of her own agency. You won't go alone, Eleanor said finally. That's not what he asked, Kayla replied. And that's exactly why I won't allow it, Eleanor countered. Silence stretched between them. Then Eleanor spoke again, quieter. If you do this, it will change everything. Kayla nodded. Everything already changed. After a long pause, Eleanor exhaled. Then we do it our way. They agreed on precautions, security at a distance, a tracker hidden in Kayla's bracelet, emergency signals if anything went wrong. Kayla didn't like it, but she understood. By late afternoon, the driver dropped Kayla 2 blocks from the marina. The air smelled of salt and rust. Gulls cried overhead, circling lazily. The place felt forgotten, frozen in time. Kayla walked the remaining distance alone. Thomas Whitaker was already there. He stood near the edge of the dock, hands in his coat pockets, watching the water. He turned as she approached, his expression unreadable. You came, he said. Kayla stopped several feet away. You said you'd tell me the truth. I will, he replied. But first, thank you. She frowned. For what? For being braver than everyone else around you, he said. They see danger. I see potential. I'm not interested in what you see, Kayla said firmly. I'm interested in facts. Thomas smiled faintly. Very well. He gestured toward the water. Your mother didn't lie to you. She protected you. The story she told you was the safest version. Kayla's jaw tightened. Then tell me the unsafe one. Thomas turned to face her fully. Naomi left because she knew what my world demanded. She didn't want that life for you. So you were dangerous, Kayla said. I was powerful, Thomas corrected. And power frightens people who don't know how to wield it. That's not an answer. He sighed. I made choices. Some hurt people. Naomi couldn't forgive that. Kayla crossed her arms. So why now? Because I've changed, Thomas said. And because I've spent years watching my legacy crumble. There it is, Kayla said. Legacy. He nodded. You're intelligent, observant, resilient. Everything I hoped for. Kayla shook her head. I'm not a replacement for your regrets. Thomas's eyes darkened. You don't understand what I'm offering. I understand exactly what you're offering, Kayla said. Control dressed up as opportunity. The wind picked up, tugging at her hair. You could have everything, Thomas said quietly. Education, influence, protection. I already have protection, Kayla replied. And I'm earning everything else. Thomas studied her for a long moment. Then he said something that made her blood run cold. You think Eleanor is saving you, he said. But she hasn't told you why she's really doing this. Kayla's chest tightened. What are you talking about? Thomas stepped closer, but stopped, respecting the distance. She isn't just your aunt, he said. She's trying to correct a mistake. One that cost her more than she ever admitted. Kayla's voice wavered. What mistake? Thomas's lips curved slightly. She didn't just lose Naomi, he said. She let her go. Kayla's heart pounded. That's not true. Ask her why she stopped searching, Thomas said. Ask her what deal she made to protect her reputation. Kayla felt the ground shift beneath her feet. You're lying, she said, but doubt crept in. Thomas shrugged. I'm giving you what you asked for. The full truth. Behind Kayla, her bracelet vibrated softly, the tracker's silent alert. Time was running out. Thomas glanced at her wrist, then back at her face. You don't trust me. No, Kayla said. I don't. But you're listening, he replied. Kayla stepped back. This conversation is over. Is it? Thomas asked calmly. Because now you know, everyone has something to hide. Kayla turned and walked away, heart racing. She didn't look back. But as she reached the street, one terrifying thought refused to leave her mind. What if he wasn't lying? Because if Thomas Whitaker was telling the truth about Eleanor, then the person she trusted most might be hiding the biggest secret of all. Kayla didn't speak during the drive back. She sat rigid in the back seat, eyes fixed on the blur of the city passing outside the window, Thomas Whitaker's words looping relentlessly in her mind. She let her go. Eleanor sat across from her, phone in hand, responding to quiet updates from security. She sensed the shift immediately, the tightness in Kayla's posture, the guarded silence. You want to ask, Eleanor said gently. I can feel it. Kayla's fingers curled into her palms. Did you know he would say that? Eleanor looked up, her expression carefully neutral. I knew he would try to turn you against me. That's not what I asked, Kayla replied, her voice shaking despite her effort to steady it. Did you let my mother go? Did you stop looking for her? The car seemed to grow smaller. Eleanor closed her phone and rested it on her lap. Not because I didn't love her. Kayla's chest tightened. Then why? They pulled into Eleanor's driveway, the gates sliding shut behind them with a heavy finality. Eleanor didn't move to get out right away. Because the search became dangerous, Eleanor said quietly. For Naomi. For you. Kayla laughed once, hollow and sharp. So you chose yourself. Eleanor flinched. I chose survival, she said. And I've regretted it every day since. Inside the house, the tension followed them like a storm cloud. Kayla paced the sitting room, anger finally breaking through fear. "You let my mom struggle," Kayla said. "You let her think she was alone." "I believed distance would keep her safe," Eleanor replied. Thomas had already begun circling. Lawyers, investigators, people who didn't ask questions. Kayla stopped pacing. "And when he stopped?" "He didn't," Eleanor said softly. "He simply waited." Silence fell between them. "You could have helped us," Kayla said, even quietly. Eleanor nodded. "Yes, I could have." "Then why didn't you?" Eleanor's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. "Because I was afraid that if I reached out again, I'd lose her for good, that she would never forgive me." Kayla felt the weight of it settle, anger tangled with something heavier. "I needed to hear that from you," Kayla said finally. Eleanor exhaled slowly. "You deserve nothing less." That night, Kayla called her mother. Danielle answered on the second ring. "Kayla? Is everything okay?" Kayla closed her eyes at the sound of her voice. "Mom, did you ever try to find your family again?" Pause. A careful one. "I thought about it," Danielle said. "For years. But some doors, they don't open without consequences." Kayla's throat tightened. "Did you ever want me to know them?" Danielle sighed. "I wanted you safe." The same word. "From everyone." "Mom," Kayla whispered, "what would you do if someone from your past tried to come back now?" Danielle didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was firm. "I would protect my daughter," she said, "at all costs." Kayla swallowed hard. "Even if they offered us everything?" "Especially then," Danielle replied. "Nothing that comes with strings is free." After the call, Kayla sat alone in the dark, her phone resting on her knee. Another message arrived. "You don't have to choose yet." Kayla deleted it. The next day, news broke online. Photos from the gala resurfaced. Kayla dancing, smiling, glowing. But this time the captions were different. "Mysterious teen linked to billionaire philanthropist." Who is the girl everyone's talking about? Speculation exploded. Eleanor watched the coverage in silence. "They're digging," Kayla said quietly. "Yes," Eleanor replied. "And Thomas will use it." As if summoned by the thought, Eleanor's assistant rushed in. "He's filed a petition," she said. "A legal request." Kayla's heart dropped. "For what?" "For recognition," Eleanor said grimly. "He's claiming biological rights." Kayla felt the air leave her lungs. "You can fight it," Eleanor said quickly. "And we will." "But it means court," Kayla said. "Public court." Eleanor nodded. "And a choice." Kayla stood, walking to the window. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the war quietly forming around her name. "For years," Kayla said slowly, "people decided who I was without asking me. Invisible. Unimportant." She turned back to Eleanor, her eyes steady. "I won't let either of you decide my future without me." Eleanor stepped closer. "What are you saying?" "I'll face him," Kayla said. "Legally. Publicly. On my terms." Eleanor searched her face, then nodded once. "Then I'll stand with you." Kayla inhaled deeply. Because the story was no longer about who claimed her. It was about who she chose to become. And soon the whole world would be watching. The morning after the petition became public, Kayla woke up to a world that no longer felt neutral. Her phone buzzed nonstop on the nightstand, alerts, messages, missed calls. She didn't open any of them at first. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the apartment, trying to remember what life felt like before her name became something people searched for. Down the hall, Danielle was already awake. Kayla could hear her moving softly, the way she always did when she didn't want to worry her daughter. That sound grounded her. Kayla finally reached for her phone. She didn't scroll far. Headlines blurred together, each one sharper than the last. Speculation. Opinions. Strangers arguing about a life they'd never lived. She locked the screen and sat up, breath tight in her chest. At breakfast, Danielle slid a mug across the table without saying much. Coffee for herself. Tea for Kayla. The small rituals mattered more now. You don't have to go anywhere today, Danielle said gently. I know, Kayla replied. But hiding won't make it quieter. Danielle studied her. Just promise me you won't read the comments. Kayla gave a small smile. No promises. Later that morning, Eleanor arrived. She looked different, not polished, not guarded. Tired. Human. We need to talk, Eleanor said as soon as the door closed behind her. They sat in the living room, sunlight cutting across the floor. Eleanor opened her briefcase and pulled out a thin folder. I should have shown you this earlier, she said. Kayla's stomach tightened. What is it? Eleanor hesitated, then handed it over. Inside were copies of emails, dated years ago. Conversations between Eleanor and a private investigator. Notes about Thomas Whitaker's movements. Legal consultations marked confidential. Kayla's hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages. You were watching him, Kayla said. Yes, Eleanor admitted. After Naomi disappeared, I needed to know if he would come looking. And when he didn't? Kayla asked. Eleanor looked down. I stopped. The words landed harder than Kayla expected. You said it was about safety, Kayla said quietly. It was, Eleanor replied. And fear. And pride. All of it. Kayla closed the folder. Why show me this now? Because he's changed tactics, Eleanor said. And because there's something here that matters. She pointed to one page. A memo. Kayla read it twice before understanding sank in. He tried to claim guardianship, before? Kayla asked. Years ago, Eleanor said. Quietly. It didn't go anywhere. Naomi shut it down. Kayla's pulse quickened. So this isn't about reconnecting. No, Eleanor said. It's about control resurfacing. The room felt colder. That afternoon, Kayla insisted on stepping outside. Not far. Just the corner store. But even that felt different. People recognized her. Some smiled. Some stared. One woman whispered something that made Kayla's shoulders stiffen. She paid quickly and left. Halfway home, a black sedan slowed beside her. Her heart jumped. The window rolled down. It wasn't Thomas. It was a man she didn't recognize. Well-dressed, polite smile, measured voice. Kayla Thompson? He asked. She stopped walking. Yes. I represent Thomas Whitaker, he said calmly. He asked me to extend an invitation. Kayla's jaw tightened. Tell him no. The man didn't flinch. He believes conversation could prevent unnecessary conflict. Kayla stepped back. This is unnecessary. Court rarely benefits anyone, the man replied. Especially children. Kayla's eyes hardened. I'm not a child. The man inclined his head slightly. Think about it. He drove off. Kayla stood frozen for several seconds before continuing home, her hands shaking. That evening, Eleanor made several calls. When she returned to the living room, her face was grim. He's applying pressure, she said. Sponsors. Donors. People I've worked with for decades. Danielle crossed her arms. So now it's a game. Eleanor nodded. And he wants you overwhelmed. Kayla stared at the floor. I don't feel overwhelmed, she said slowly. I feel targeted. That night, Kayla couldn't sleep. She replayed every interaction. Every look Thomas had given her. Come. Assured. As if the outcome was already written. She got out of bed and opened her laptop. She didn't search headlines. She searched court records. It took time, patience, and more legal language than she was used to, but eventually she found it. A sealed case from years ago. Thomas Whitaker versus Naomi Thompson. Custody intent. Withdrawn. Kayla's chest tightened. She sat back, staring at the screen. This wasn't new. She wasn't the beginning of this story. She was the continuation. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're stronger than they think. Kayla stared at the message, unease creeping up her spine. Who is this? She typed back. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No reply. The next morning, a letter arrived. Hand-delivered. No return address. Inside was a single page. A copy of a document Kayla recognized instantly. The same memo Eleanor had shown her, with one line highlighted. Potential leverage if circumstances change. Kayla felt her stomach drop. Someone else had this, and whoever it was wanted her to know. She looked up as Danielle entered the room. "What is it?" her mother asked. Kayla folded the paper slowly. "I think," she said, voice steady but low, "someone is playing both sides." And for the first time since the gala, Kayla felt something deeper than fear. She felt the ground shifting. Because whatever came next wasn't just about truth anymore. It was about timing. And someone was counting on her to break first. The first thing Kayla noticed was the silence. Not the calm kind, the kind that presses in heavy and deliberate like a held breath. The apartment felt too still when she woke up, as if something had already happened and she'd missed it. She found Danielle in the kitchen, staring at her phone. "Mom?" Kayla said. Danielle looked up, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just work stuff." Kayla knew better. But she let it go, for now. On the table lay the letter from the night before, folded neatly beside Eleanor's business card. Kayla hadn't slept much after reading it. Whoever had sent it knew exactly which thread to pull. Later that morning, Eleanor arrived again, this time without her usual composure. "They leaked something," she said, closing the door behind her. Kayla's stomach tightened. "What?" "A narrative," Eleanor replied. "That I manipulated you. That I orchestrated the gala moment." Danielle scoffed. "That's ridiculous." "Ridiculous spreads faster than truth," Eleanor said grimly. Kayla exhaled slowly. "So now it's not just him." "No," Eleanor said. "It's the story around him." By midday, Kayla's phone buzzed again, another unknown number. "We need to talk." Kayla stared at the message, her pulse quickening. Danielle noticed immediately. "Who is that?" "I don't know," Kayla said. "But they know things." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Do not respond." Kayla hesitated, then typed anyway. "About what?" A reply came almost instantly. "About what Naomi never told you." Kayla's breath caught. She stood abruptly. "I need air." Before either woman could stop her, Kayla grabbed her jacket and stepped outside. She walked fast, the city moving around her in fragments, sirens, voices, traffic. She didn't know where she was going until she realized she was heading toward the small public park a few blocks away. A place she'd gone as a kid. Neutral ground. Her phone buzzed again. Bench near the fountain. Kayla slowed. Her instincts screamed at her to turn around. She didn't. A woman sat on the bench, posture rigid, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked ordinary, mid-30s, plain coat, tired eyes. She looked up as Kayla approached. "You came?" the woman said. "Who are you?" Kayla asked, stopping several feet away. "My name is Rachel Monroe," the woman replied. "I worked for your father. Years ago." Kayla's chest tightened. "Why are you here?" Rachel swallowed. "Because I couldn't stay quiet anymore." Kayla crossed her arms. "You sent the letter." Rachel nodded. "And the message?" "Why?" Kayla asked. "For him?" Rachel shook her head quickly. "No. For you." Kayla's voice was sharp. "You already helped him once." Rachel flinched. "I helped Naomi." Kayla froze. "You knew my mother." "Yes," Rachel said. "She trusted me." Kayla sat slowly on the opposite end of the bench, heart pounding. "What didn't she tell me?" Kayla asked. Rachel glanced around, then leaned forward. "That Thomas didn't just want custody." Kayla's throat tightened. "Then what?" "He wanted silence," Rachel said. "Naomi had information about how his foundation was being used. Money moved through shell charities. She threatened to expose it." Kayla felt dizzy. That's serious." "It's why she left," Rachel continued. "And why she disappeared completely." Kayla's mind raced. "Then why withdraw the case?" Rachel hesitated. "Because Naomi made a deal." The words landed like a blow. "A deal?" Kayla whispered. "She agreed to stay silent," Rachel said, voice shaking. "In exchange for you." Kayla stared at her. "For me?" "To keep you out of his reach," Rachel said. "To give you a normal life." Kayla's chest burned. She didn't abandon us, Kayla said. No, Rachel replied softly. She sacrificed everything. Kayla's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. Why tell me now? Kayla asked. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Because Thomas is rewriting history. And because Eleanor isn't as innocent as she wants you to believe. Kayla stiffened. What do you mean? She knew about the deal, Rachel said. She helped negotiate it. The world tilted. That's not true, Kayla said automatically. I was there, Rachel replied. Eleanor believed silence was the safest option. Kayla stood abruptly. You're lying. Rachel reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document. A copy, she said. I kept it all these years. Kayla didn't take it. She couldn't. Sirens wailed somewhere nearby. Why now? Kayla asked again, her voice breaking. Why risk this now? Rachel looked down. Because he threatened me. He wants me to testify for him. Kayla's breath caught. And you won't. Rachel met her gaze. I won't lie again. Kayla stepped back, her thoughts spinning. You should go, Kayla said. Rachel nodded, standing quickly. Be careful who you trust. As Rachel disappeared into the crowd, Kayla's phone rang. Danielle. Kayla answered, her voice unsteady. Mom? Where are you? Danielle asked, panic threading her words. I'm on my way home, Kayla replied. She ended the call and looked down at her shaking hands. Everything she thought she knew felt unstable now. Her mother had sacrificed. Her aunt had negotiated. Her father had manipulated. And someone had decided her life before she could speak. By the time Kayla reached home, Eleanor was waiting. You went to meet her, Eleanor said. Kayla didn't deny it. You knew about the deal. Eleanor closed her eyes. Yes, she said. The confession hung heavy between them. Kayla felt something inside her fracture, not completely but enough to hurt. I need time, Kayla said quietly. Eleanor nodded. I understand. That night, Kayla sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed one last time. Court will decide what you won't. Kayla turned the screen face down. Because now the truth wasn't just painful. It was dangerous. And tomorrow she would have to decide who deserved her trust. Before someone else decided for her. The night before the hearing arrived quietly. Too quietly. Kayla lay awake long after the apartment lights were turned off, staring at the faint glow of the city filtering through the curtains. Every sound felt amplified. The hum of the refrigerator, a distant siren, the soft creak of the building settling into itself. Her mind refused rest. Rachel's words echoed again and again, each repetition heavier than the last. A deal. Silence. For you. Kayla sat up slowly and reached for her phone. No new messages. No threats. No reassurance either. She swung her feet onto the floor and padded down the hallway. Danielle was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled up to her shoulders, exhaustion etched into her face. Kayla paused, watching her chest rise and fall, and felt a surge of something fierce and protective. She grabbed a notebook from her backpack and returned to her room. If tomorrow was going to decide anything, she needed to decide herself first. She began writing. Not notes for court. Not arguments. Truths. She wrote about the old dress, how it had never felt old to her until someone taught her to see it that way. She wrote about watching her mother count change at the kitchen table and still smile. She wrote about Eleanor's firm hand on her shoulder the first time the world tried to pull her apart. She wrote about Thomas. About the calm in his voice. The certainty. The way he spoke as if time belonged to him. When she finished, the notebook felt heavier, as if it held more than paper. A soft knock came at her door. Eleanor stepped in slowly. I couldn't sleep, Eleanor said. Neither could I, Kayla replied. They stood there for a moment, unsure of how to occupy the same space now that everything had been said. I should have told you, Eleanor said finally, before he ever reached out. Kayla nodded. Yes, you should have. Eleanor didn't argue. I believed silence was protection, Eleanor continued, but it became control. And I'm sorry. Kayla studied her face, the woman who had guarded her, guided her, failed her all at once. Why did you help with the deal? Kayla asked. Eleanor exhaled slowly. Because Naomi was terrified. And because Thomas had resources she couldn't fight alone. And you thought giving in would end it? Kayla said. Yes, Eleanor admitted. I thought if he got what he wanted, your distance, he'd leave you alone. Kayla swallowed hard. But he didn't. No, Eleanor said quietly. He waited. Silence stretched between them. Tomorrow, Kayla said, he'll talk about biology. About rights. Eleanor nodded. And we'll talk about choice. Kayla closed her notebook. I don't want to destroy him. I know, Eleanor said. I just want him to stop deciding my life, Kayla continued. Eleanor reached out, then stopped herself. Then that's what you'll say. Later, Danielle woke and joined them at the kitchen table. No speeches. No rehearsals. Just the three of them sharing tea as the city outside grew darker, then lighter again. As dawn crept in, Kayla felt an unexpected calm settle over her. Not certainty. Clarity. She dressed carefully that morning, not for cameras, not for court, but for herself. Simple. Comfortable. Honest. Before they left, Kayla paused at the door. I need to know something, she said, turning to Eleanor. Yes. If this doesn't go the way we hope, will you still stand with me? Eleanor met her gaze. Always. Outside the air was crisp. Reporters were already gathering in the distance, their presence a reminder that whatever happened inside the courtroom would ripple outward. As they approached the building, Kayla felt her phone vibrate. One final message. From an unknown number. There's still time to change your mind. Kayla stopped walking. Danielle squeezed her hand. Whatever happens, she said softly, we face it together. Kayla looked at the courthouse steps. Wide, imposing, final. She deleted the message without opening it. Then she took a deep breath and stepped forward. Not knowing the outcome. Not knowing the cost. Only knowing that this time she wasn't walking in as someone's secret. She was walking in as herself. And inside, decisions would be made. But her choice already was. The courtroom was silent in a way Kayla had never experienced before. Not the quiet of a library or a classroom, but the heavy stillness that pressed against your chest, daring you to breathe too loudly. Polished wood gleamed beneath the overhead lights. The seal of the state hung behind the judge's bench, a reminder that this wasn't a story anymore. It was real, permanent, and public. Kayla sat between her mother and Eleanor. Danielle's hand was warm in hers, steady despite the storm of emotions swirling beneath the surface. Eleanor sat upright on the other side, composed, controlled, every inch the woman the world expected her to be. But Kayla noticed the small things, the tight clasp of Eleanor's fingers, the way her jaw tensed whenever Thomas Whitaker's name was spoken. And Thomas was here. He sat across the aisle, dressed impeccably, his posture relaxed as if this were just another boardroom negotiation. His legal team whispered in low tones beside him, confident, prepared. When his eyes flicked toward Kayla, there was no hostility in them. Only certainty. That unsettled her more than anger ever could. The judge entered and everyone rose. As they sat again, Kayla felt the weight of every camera positioned at the back of the room. This hearing wasn't televised, but word had spread. Too much money. Too much power. Too compelling a story. A girl from nowhere. A billionaire from everywhere. And a past that refused to stay buried. Thomas's attorney spoke first, his voice smooth, precise. He talked about bloodlines, responsibility, opportunity. He painted Thomas as a man seeking connection, not control. A father who had lost time and wanted to make amends. Kayla listened without reacting. Then Eleanor's attorney rose. He didn't talk about wealth. He didn't talk about legacy. He talked about patterns. About documented behavior. About absence. About fear. Kayla felt Danielle's grip tighten when her name was mentioned, when the life they had lived was laid bare in careful, respectful terms. No embellishment. No pity. Just truth. Finally, the judge turned toward Kayla. Miss Thompson, he said calmly, I understand you wish to speak. Every nerve in her body lit up. She stood slowly, her legs steady even as her heart raced. The courtroom faded into the background, The cameras, the whispers, the lawyers. All that remained was the man across from her and the choice in front of her. "Yes, Your Honor," Kayla said. She didn't look at Thomas at first. She looked at the judge. Then at her mother. Then at Eleanor. And then she turned. "I was raised by a woman who worked nights and weekends," Kayla began, her voice clear. "A woman who chose me every single day, even when it cost her everything." Thomas's expression didn't change. "I didn't grow up with power," Kayla continued. "I grew up with values. With boundaries. With love that didn't ask for anything in return." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Kayla inhaled, steadying herself. "I was invisible for most of my life," she said. "And when I was finally seen, people decided that meant I was owed. Or owned." Her eyes met Thomas's now. "I am not an extension of anyone's regret," she said firmly. "I am not a legacy to be reclaimed. And I am not something that can be filed for." The silence was absolute. "I acknowledge biology," Kayla said. "But biology alone doesn't make a parent. Presence does. Protection does. Respect does." She paused, her chest rising slowly. "I don't deny where I come from," she finished. "But I choose where I'm going." The judge nodded thoughtfully. Thomas stood then, unexpected. "May I speak?" he asked. The judge hesitated, then nodded once. Thomas turned toward Kayla, his voice calm but edged now, stripped of polish. "You believe this is about control," he said. "It isn't. It's about correcting a loss." Kayla didn't respond. "I lost years," Thomas continued. "And I won't apologize for wanting what was taken from me." Kayla's voice was quiet but unshakable. "Nothing was taken. She left." Something dark flickered in Thomas's eyes. "And you think they won't leave you too?" he asked. "When the attention fades. When the money is gone." Danielle stood abruptly. "That's enough," she said, her voice breaking through the tension like a blade. "You don't get to question her worth." The judge raised a hand. "Order." Kayla squeezed her mother's hand, then looked back at Thomas. "I'm not afraid of being left," Kayla said. "Because I know who stayed." Thomas's jaw tightened. The judge leaned forward. "This court recognizes biological connection," he said slowly. "But it also recognizes the autonomy of the individual, especially when that individual is capable, articulate, and clear in her wishes." He glanced at Kayla again. "Miss Thompson, your statement has been heard." Minutes later the decision came. Thomas Whitaker's petition was denied. The words landed softly but carried the weight of finality. A breath Kayla hadn't realized she was holding finally escaped her lungs. Danielle broke down quietly beside her, pressing her forehead to Kayla's shoulder. Eleanor closed her eyes, relief and grief washing across her face at once. Thomas didn't react. He simply stood, buttoned his jacket, and looked at Kayla one last time. "This isn't over," he said quietly, more promise than threat. Kayla met his gaze. "It is for me," she replied. Outside the courthouse, cameras surged forward. Questions flew. Microphones hovered. Kayla stopped. She turned back, facing them, not as the girl in the old dress, not as the mystery, not as the headline, but as herself. "I didn't win because of money," she said calmly. "I won because I chose myself." And in that moment something shifted. Not just for her, but for every person watching who had ever been made to feel small, until they decided they weren't. The city felt different after the courthouse. Not quieter, just clearer. Kayla sat in the back seat as traffic crawled past familiar streets, her reflection flickering in the window. The headlines were already live. Notifications stacked up faster than she could read them. Messages from strangers. From teachers. From people who said her words had reached them in places they didn't know how to explain. But for the first time since the gala, the noise didn't overwhelm her. Because the fight was over. At home, Danielle collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Eleanor stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear, shutting down interviews, declining invitations, protecting Kayla's silence the way she always had, this time without hesitation. Kayla slipped into her room and closed the door. She reached for the old dress. It still hung in the closet, carefully cleaned, carefully preserved. The fabric was worn, the stitching imperfect. But when she ran her fingers over it, she felt something steady beneath the memories. Not shame. Proof. She sat on the edge of the bed, the courtroom replaying in her mind, not the verdict, but the moment before it. The moment she spoke. 4 years she had waited to be chosen. By teachers. By opportunity. By a world that rarely looked twice at girls like her. She realized now she had been waiting for the wrong thing. Downstairs, Danielle knocked softly and stepped in. "You okay?" her mother asked. Kayla nodded. "Tired? But lighter." Danielle smiled, brushing Kayla's hair back like she used to when Kayla was little. "You were incredible today." "I was scared," Kayla admitted. Danielle squeezed her hand. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's deciding fear doesn't get to lead." Kayla leaned into her, breathing in the familiar comfort of home. That evening, Eleanor joined them for dinner, not a formal one, just takeout spread across the table, shoes kicked off, the weight of years settling into something gentler. "I owe you both an apology," Eleanor said quietly. Danielle looked up. "For what?" "For waiting too long," Eleanor replied. "For thinking protection meant control." Kayla met her gaze. "You showed up when it mattered." Eleanor nodded, emotion flickering in her eyes. "I won't disappear again." Later that night, Kayla's phone buzzed one last time. An unknown number. She hesitated, then opened the message. "You made your choice. So will I." No signature. Kayla stared at the screen, then calmly deleted it. Some doors didn't need to be reopened. The weeks that followed brought change, real change. Kayla returned to school, but the whispers had shifted. Teachers listened more closely. Students looked at her differently, not with pity, not with curiosity, but with respect. She was invited to speak at a local youth center in Brooklyn. Then another in Queens. Then one in New Jersey. She stood in front of rooms filled with girls who recognized themselves in her story. "I didn't become powerful overnight," Kayla told them. "I just stopped believing I was powerless." The dance video resurfaced online, not as gossip but as inspiration. Someone paired it with her courtroom words. Another added subtitles. Another turned it into a short clip that traveled far beyond anything Kayla expected. She didn't go viral. She went visible. One afternoon, Kayla visited the marina alone. The water shimmered under the late sun. The place no longer felt threatening, just quiet. She stood where Thomas once had and felt nothing pull her backward. Only forward. She turned away without looking back. At home, Danielle framed a photo, not from the gala, not from the courthouse, but one taken years ago. Kayla at 10 wearing that same dress, smiling wide despite everything. "This one matters most," Danielle said. Kayla nodded. "Because that girl never stopped believing." On the anniversary of the gala, Kayla attended another event, this time by choice. Not as a spectacle, not as a mystery, as a guest speaker. She wore a simple dress. Nothing extravagant. Nothing borrowed. When she stepped onto the floor afterward, music rising around her, she felt no need to wait for an invitation. She danced anyway. And somewhere in the room, someone watched, not with power, not with possession, but with understanding. Because the real transformation wasn't that a billionaire noticed her. It was that she noticed herself. The girl once ashamed of her old dress had learned something the world never taught her. Worth doesn't come from who chooses you. It comes from choosing yourself, again and again. And this time, she was ready for whatever came next.